Hey, how's it going? Week 17. I'm gonna start this off with the campaign mission I played today. It took me 16 minutes. It's just a long one. I may have died twice, but that barely took up any extra time. It is a long one, and I'm not super feeling it this week. A lot of it's just I don't have much to talk about. But this may be the first time that I talk for a certain amount and then kind of end that and just let the rest of the mission play out because it feels wrong to cut it in half, but I also don't want to have to just rant or, you know, uh, randomly come up with something to talk for 16 minutes. So we'll see. I'll go through everything I've got and we'll see how long it takes me. And if it ends early, it ends early, and that's just how it's gonna be. I could also speed up the video a little bit, which maybe, but probably not. Anyways, yes, week 17. What did I do this week? I did a lot of cleaning. I have decided to fully deep clean. And I've said this before, but or I've said before in my life that I've fully deep cleaned, and I haven't. What I'm doing right now is I did a lot of getting rid of stuff that I don't need. I did a lot of organizing everything into places that everything belongs. And now I'm actually at the final steps, pretty much, where I need to clean up my desk and I want to look around, but I don't want to look away from the mic. Most of my living room, bedroom, bathroom, hallway, kitchen, all that is 100% done. It's just my living room. Well, bathroom's 99%, or kitchen's 99% done. So I gotta clean up my desk, move a couple extra things around in my living room. But then I was using my Swiffer mop on my kitchen floor, and it was not getting out all the dirt that I wanted. And that floor is tile, so it's more resistant than the wood floors that I have. But I think tomorrow morning, or maybe tomorrow in the early afternoon, I'm going to get down on all fours and just start taking my sponge and scrubbing all of the dirt out. Every single inch of that floor I want to get fully clean. Uh, and then I'll go back through and mop the living room, do a finishing set of mopping in the kitchen, the bathroom, the hallway. And even though I did my bedroom just a couple days ago, I'm going to sweep and mop it again. And then I'm going to clean off my house shoes so those are all set. And from that point on, theoretically, I'm only ever walking around in my apartment in my house shoes that are clean. And I'm sweeping every couple days, and this place is, nearly spotless. There's some dust and, dirt and stuff on the walls that I'll slowly get to over time. But I'm very excited to be nearing a full, complete, uh, having a fully cleaned and better than brand new apartment. I think I spent 5 hours or so today, and it didn't feel bad. I enjoyed it because slowly seeing everything get cleaner, and having that space open up feels really nice. Ooh, I also cleaned my car. It finally got warm enough where I could, and there's no rain, so I could justify both a car wash. And again, I went through, removed everything from my car that doesn't need to be there, vacuumed it all out, and it looks so much nicer with not a bunch of extra stuff lying around, everything in the back in the trunk placed where it needs to be, and then no or very little, dirt and crumbs or pieces of salt from when they were salting the roads with snow. All that kind of stuff is no longer on my floor mats and everything. So, clean car, clean apartment, all of that feels great. Um, did some hang out with friends. Oh, did a great. Oh, yesterday was actually amazing. I planned, and by planned, both my friends thought I was planning this a bit more than I did. I just picked up two of my friends and said, "Hey, we're gonna go to the mall," and we walked around the mall for 2.5 hours, like it was like we were high schoolers in 2008. Uh, well, maybe 2006 or 7 or 9. I don't know I don't know that high schoolers in 2008 had mall money. They wouldn't really have it in 2009 either. But anyways, yes, I walked around and we went into a bunch of different stores and we spent some money that we shouldn't have or that we didn't need to, but it was just a great time, getting to kind of relive those memories. I didn't do a ton of that in my high school years, but I grew up with media that was portraying teenage and high school life as if you did that all the time. So that was pretty fun. So yeah, 2.5 hours of walking, and then I went back to my friend's house to hang out with him, and we couldn't just relax in his house, so we walked for another 2.5 hours just around his neighborhood and talking, and basically every step of the way, every like 15 minutes, he was saying, "Oh, are you getting tired? Like, do you want to go back? I don't want to force you to stay out." And in my mind, I was thinking, it's what, 60 degrees with a nice wind. It's sunny. I'm having a great time. I actually don't want to go back. I want to just keep walking and talking because the time I'm at an age now where just talking to people is fun. It doesn't have to be an activity, and the fact that I could be walking and doing something healthy and that I like to do as well, it was great. Had a pretty good day yesterday with that. However, I didn't have such a great week overall. I can't really complain about this. Obviously, last week I talked about the one person um, who I ran into at a competition who kind of, you know, his values and the way he goes through his life did not align with how I would do it. Well, two more people this week had a similar thing. So for the last couple weeks, I'm trying to see if I had this. No, I didn't have this in my notes for last week. For the last little bit, everything has felt weird in my apartment. I haven't even gotten to what this week is, but that's fine. We're getting there. It's felt weird. We had some people looking through like the basement and looking around the building. My landlord needed to inspect a couple units in the building, and then there was someone who came by to deep clean the whole area, which it's never been deep cleaned before. So I knew that all this felt weird and felt wrong. And I was thinking about this. I went, rent increase, people hanging out, deep cleaning, inspections. This sounds like he's selling the building. And I was pretty sure about that because why? Yeah, sure. Maybe he was doing all this and then he was going to say, oh, yeah, I'm just, tidying up the place and then increasing rent because I need to. But it felt a bit weird. And I texted him on Tuesday and I said, hey, are you selling the building? Didn't get a response. And when I didn't get a response, I was kind of guaranteed that if he wasn't selling the building, he would have just said, no. Like, why are you thinking that? Or I don't know why you think that, but no, I'm not. So his lack of response and willingness to say something is what convinced me that he was. Then Friday, I decide, let me take matters a little bit into my own hands and do something I haven't thought of before, at least this time around. And I just looked up my address because I knew that if it was being sold, it would be on there. And just about an hour earlier, I looked it up at maybe 10:30. And so 9:30 a.m., it was posted on a couple websites that this place is for sale. And I was looking at that and I went, wow, my landlord is doing all of this, not telling us the building is for sale. And then even when I ask him, he doesn't say anything. So that felt kind of, and it's not like he's just my landlord. He is, when I first met him, he was my girlfriend's stepfather's best friend. But anyways, a close family friend. And so I got to know him and, we were closer than just landlord and tenant, even though we weren't super close. But like I assumed that we were still on a good enough connection, a good enough talking basis that if I would have asked, he would have said something. But he didn't, and I personally think that sucks because this is where I live, right? It's not my livelihood, that's my job, but it's the second most important thing. If you lose where you live, you're in big trouble. So I would have liked to know about that. But at the end of the day, he is a landlord, and tenant and landlord relationships are what they are. The one that really kind of bothered me a bit more was going back to that my ex-girlfriend. We're still friends, and we were still close enough. There's no bad blood or anything. She was gonna potentially come to my improv show on Tuesday. That's my showcase show for this. But when I'd be kind of voicing my thoughts and concerns about all this to her, just because she knew the situation a bit. And then on Friday, once I found out for sure, I said, oh, hey, I figured out, concrete evidence of what's going on here. The building's being sold. And she responds with, yeah, I know. I was just told not to tell you. And that struck a nerve with me because in my mind, right, if I was told that any of my friends that I know, right, I heard that, hey, where they live is going to change. The owner's going to change, the building's being sold, things are going to happen. I wouldn't, even if I was told don't tell them, I would tell them because that's a pretty serious thing. I wouldn't want to keep my friends in the dark with something that could be as big as like, hey, in the next month you need to move, you need to leave, which means you need to find a new place and move everything out. And like, that's a big deal. So the fact that she wasn't willing to say that, it just shows that like, again, if you want to call it morals or beliefs or ways of life, just don't they aren't the same. And finally, we're getting around to this like 10 minutes in. I think I will actually hit the full 16 minutes on this. Is a week of distance. I 3 times in less than a week. I have considered people. I've had people who I considered close or close-ish friends, or even with my landlord, just someone who is more than a strictly like business or like client relationship. Not necessarily take advantage of that, but I was let down by the way that the actions that they took and what they thought was okay versus what I would do. And I'm realizing that this may not be a fault of them. This may be a fault of me. I am very trusting, and I wouldn't. Forgiving isn't the right word, but as soon as you show that there is, again, like human aspects to you, right? If you seem, you know, uh, happy or sad or like um, apologetic, or if you like laughing at jokes, anything that like has to do with emotions, I can cling on to that really easily, and I see people in a better light. And so, with that, I tend to, while I don't necessarily get super close with people, I see them in a bit of a closer way where I'm more willing to trust them. And like I said, last week I would have assumed that in my friend's position, he would have let me have the victory because he already had one. And that's what I would do if I was in that position. If I was my landlord or if I was my ex-girlfriend, I would tell that person, hey, these things are these things are going to happen. I can't tell you. I don't know when they're going to happen. Right? Maybe the building's not going to be sold for another 6 months. But I'm getting in the process of that, so just be aware that that's going to happen. I would let these people know before these things were fully out there, and so that I didn't have to be worried or find them on my own or anything like that. And you know, at the end of the day, it's how they want to live their life and how I want to live my life. But I also mentioned this to a couple friends, the things that happened, and I felt a little bit justified in that all of them said, no, that's messed up. Like, if I was in that position, I would have told you, and people shouldn't be keeping that information from me. So, again, maybe I'm in the wrong. Maybe I'm making a big deal about nothing. It's not like it ruined my week, but it did start to change the way that I look at things. And, you know, really, it's probably for the best. I think being too accepting, being too trusting and misaligned, misunderstanding what the differences between people are, and assuming that others are going to have the same ideas and wants as me is bad, or is going to lead to potential problems in my future. So being able to step back and say, hey, there are some people that I will need to keep at an arm's length distance at all times unless I have decided I've really thoroughly, hung out with them, and I decided that I can let them in closer. It is okay and a right thing to do to just say, I've got a couple of my close friends. Everybody else is a bubble away, right? They don't get to be in on my personal life. I don't trust them, I don't implicitly trust them with everything, and I don't want this to sound negative. They're still going to be my friends. I'm still going to have people that I like talk to and hang out. There's not going to be any resentment towards those people, but I'm going to mentally disassociate between how I would treat my close friends with how I would treat the one step away, normal friends. And I don't like that. I don't like having to live life in that way. I'd want to treat everybody as if I can trust them and rely on them. And because in my mind, that's the person I want to be. I want anybody to be able to look at me and think, oh, I can trust that person. I can rely on him. He's going to let me know if, there's something that matters, that's important to me, or that's important that I know. He's going to make sure that happens. Oh, if I need help, he's going to be there to help me, right? I'm always offering and going out of my way to give friends rides to places, right? I'm driving 4.5 hours to Indiana in June so that I can, well, not so that, I'm doing that anyways, but I offered rides to 3 of my friends because, well, we're all going to the same place, and even if, even if they had their own plans or whatever, I like doing things for people, so I want to be able to do that. Or next week, I'm going to be going to a housewarming party Saturday night, and then staying over at my friend's Saturday night, and then we're going to play games, that is, on Sunday morning. And we were talking about, what was the plan for Saturday, and I said, oh, I'll pick you up. And he's like, are you sure? Like, I can just drive there. It's out of your way. And I said, nope, I'll pick you up. Like, I will, sure, it's a little bit out of my way. I'll have to leave half an hour earlier, but I will come here. I'll pick you up. I'll drive you down. I'll drive you back because you know that, I like having you in my car, or like I like hanging out with you. So it's not a big deal for me. I like driving. You're not the biggest fan of driving. We're both going to the same place, your house, at the end of the night. So, you know, it just works out. I might as well do that. And that's the kind of person that I try to be, and just what I want to put into the world, and unfortunately what I want to see back, but it seems like that's not always the case. Crazy. I really did ramble for just about 15 minutes. That's going to be all for today, but thanks for listening, and I hope you have a great week.